Yesterday, the trial of Leticia Stauch began, and I was glued to the screen. I followed Gannon's case from the beginning, and I hope this is the time Leticia's lies will come to an end. I don't believe for a second that she was insane, because look at the events after his death. She deliberately tried to conceal everything and clean up the scene. This was not just a moment of psychosis. Leticia wanted to get away with this. Let's take a look at some court moments of day 1, opening statements. The trial will continue today at 9, with the calling of witnesses.
On January 26, 2020, something bad happened inside the Stauch family home. Gannon suffered some burns. You'll learn this from a video recording this defendant made that night, January 26th. You'll hear her as she manipulated Gannon, putting guilt on him for some mistake that a child made. And in that recording, you'll hear Gannon say in his own words, "I'm just worried about my burns."
I just don't know what to do.
Well, devastating. Initially, Scott, I can't lie when the TMZ information.
Gannon, I promise this is the last time I'm gonna ask you. I'm just freaked out, okay? Are you sure you didn't do it on purpose? Okay, we promise. You promise. Pinky promise. Okay, all right, so listen. We're, all right, we're gonna have to sell stuff to fix it, okay? So we figure out what we gotta sell. We can sell the sofa. We can sell whatever, because we gotta get it fixed. So lady, don't be mad at us and kick us out of the house. Okay? You got it? You got it?
I'm just worried about my
Okay, shh, listen. So tomorrow,
Gannon was fighting for his life, and those were defensive wounds. Next came a crushing blow to his head that was so strong, it fractured his skull like an eggshell. That wasn't enough for this defendant. He retrieved a 9mm handgun, fired it at Gannon 3 times. 2 bullets struck the pillow near him and were caught in the fibers of that pillow. That 3rd bullet entered his jaw, traveled through his head, fracturing his mandible, his vertebrae, hitting his spinal cord, and lodged in the back of his head and was recovered at autopsy. Gannon in a suitcase, first in her car, and then up north near the El Paso County, Douglas County line. GPS location data was used to track her locations or her movements. And it led to another grisly discovery up just in this area here. A board was found under a tree. That board had Gannon's blood on it. This is miles away from the Stauch family home, which is in the southeast part of the city, close to the airport. You'll learn through testimony that this board came from the Stauch family garage. Then took more deliberate and thoughtful action. She loaded the suitcase containing Gannon into the back of a rented van and drove to Florida. And that's the course of her travels from here to Florida. She rented a hotel room in Pensacola, Florida on February 4th, 2020. She drove a short distance from that hotel room, which is sort of by those blue angular marks on the map, up to where that red square is on the map. Drove a short distance from that hotel room, across a dark bridge that drives over a river that flows into the Gulf of Mexico. There she acted with determined purpose. Stopped that van. She hauled the suitcase out of the back of that van, drug it to the side of the road, hoisted it up over the railing, pushed it over the side, hoping that Gannon would never be found. 48 days later, 1,300 miles away from where Gannon was murdered, the search for answers and Gannon's remains finally ended on March 17, 2020, when the suitcase that came from that basement storage room, Gannon's remains, blankets, and the pillow were found by an unlucky bridge worker checking that bridge for safety. And imagine the shock that he felt when he realized what was inside that suitcase. Inside that suitcase, obviously Gannon's decomposing remains. Also, these two blankets and that pillow. Remember the pictures that I showed just a moment ago of Gannon in bed? These pictures were taken by this defendant on the morning of January 27, 2020. Sent them by text message to Gannon's father, Al, who was in Oklahoma for training. Take note of those blankets. Take note of the blankets that were recovered from that suitcase. The very same blankets and pillow that were in those pictures on January 27, 2020 were found 1,300 miles away with Gannon underneath that bridge. I'll ask you to convict her on each and every one of those charges, and the evidence will guide you towards those convictions. On January 27, 2020, 6:55 p.m., the defendant herself called 911. She called 911 to report that Gannon was missing and not come home. Call taker, you'll hear, ask the defendant, who was the last person to see Gannon?
Who was the last person to see him? I guess me?
The evidence will show that she was the last person to see Gannon alive. The evidence will show that she was sane on January 27, 2020, when she ended Gannon's life. The evidence will show that she acted intentionally and deliberately when she took Gannon's life. And then we will ask you to convict her. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Defense?
My name is Will Cook. I, along with Mr. Tellini, represent Leticia Stauch. Now, this is a very tough case. We looked at the jury questionnaires, prosecution. There was a lot of strong feelings. Questionnaires. Have you formed an opinion about Ms. Stauch? Got a lot of she's guilty. Got a few she's evil. People forming opinions about this case before they ever hear one shred of evidence. As a defense attorney in this case is very worrisome when people have come in and they have preconceived notions of what's going on. With respect to what do you think about insanity? Is it valid? Something that's legitimate. A lot of people said insanity is just a way to get out of taking responsibility. It's an excuse. It doesn't exist. It's fake. Got a lot of that. So I, as the defense attorney, have two big problems in the case. I represent Ms. Stauch, who, according to a lot of jury questionnaires, is evil and guilty. And us raising insanity is a bunch of BS. A lot to deal with. Been looking at this case for going on 3 years now. All the photos, I've seen all the reports Mr. Tellini has, and it's a lot. What you saw on the board this afternoon, that's the PG stuff, the rated G information, photos you're going to see. For a general audience, go forward in this case, you're going to see the autopsy photos. You're going to see the photos of when Gannon was brought out of the suitcase. And they're horrible. Horrible. was an awful, awful thing that was done to Gannon. And I see Mr. Allen get up here and he's emotional, almost into tears talking about it. And I get it. I get it. What happened to that little 11-year-old boy is beyond description. The facts of this case, awful. You know, it's so bad. This is a lost cause. Ladies and gentlemen, I can't quit. I can't leave this courtroom. Got to do my job in this case. Mr. Tolini does. I can't just, after that opening statement. All right, we've got a photo here. We've got some familiar looking faces. Gannon, Leticia Stauch. Stepmom, stepson. Gannon's little sister in the back. You look at that. Looks like everybody's doing pretty good. Happy, sunny day. Maybe Miss Stauch is doing a selfie holding the camera out in front of her. When would have this photo been taken? The day before Gannon died. The day before he was killed. It wasn't a photo of evil, anger. A photo of someone, by all accounts, who was a loving stepmother. Care of Gannon. Gannon's father was on a deployment. Woman right here is not guilty. He's presumed innocent. Not telling you to like it. I'm just telling you that's the way it is. I'm going to stop now because I'm running out of steam. But I really, really, really do appreciate your time.